Okay, last Shiur we spoke about what Alter Rebbe describes, which is based on Mekufayim Beis, but how able to rent a house through a third party to be able to make money, a profit on your money without a chashash of ribis and have your investment guaranteed. And I ended the shiur by saying that the same thing could be done with a mortgage, and I didn't get into details how it should be done. So I'm going to open with that. I want to complete the last shiur, and then we'll go into interesting nekuda and Siman Kuf Samach Dalet. So now I know that every single one of you that didn't buy a house yet. Kuf Samach Dalet of Gimel, but I'm not looking at it yet. I will be discussing parts from Alter Rebbe later. The way it works, a simple background. Person wants to buy a house, let's say for $1 million, and he signs a contract. First step is signing a contract. You agree to buy a house. You put down a down payment of a certain amount of money, and then you have 2 or 3 months towards the closing. Closing is when the mekach is finished. You become a full owner. Title is transferred. At closing, you have to come up with $1 million. Well, you already gave, let's say, $50,000 as a down payment. You have to come up with another $950,000. So you don't have the whole $1 million. So you have to borrow. So who do you borrow from? You borrow from a bank. The way the banks work, they give you, usually the regular loans are 80-20. They give you 80, you have to come with 20. You could get loans that are 10% you have to put down, 5%. Even those already have mortgage insurance, and you have like the government, the FHA loans, which is even up to 3.5% that you put down, and the rest they give. The money that they give you, usually most mortgages are 30 years. Some are 15 years mortgage. Most people take a 30-year mortgage, fixed rate. That means that the rate does not change from year to year. Whatever you decide on the day that you sign the paper, that's where it stays like the void. And then they give the money to the seller on your behalf. Yeah, so let's take an example, $1 million house. You take an $800,000 mortgage, which is 80% of the house, 30-year mortgage, yeah, 4% interest, which is today it's l'erech, that's around the number that we're at today. It's a little bit less. A few months ago, it was much less. It was people were able to get at 3, but no, let's take 4% as an example. Every month, you will be paying $3,819. At the end of the day, you will be paying a total of $1,374,000 and $374,956 on those $1,800,000. On those $800,000. That means the 800,000 became 1.374956. Yeah, that means how much interest are you paying over 30 years for this loan? It's you take 800,000. It's like 574,956. Kimat double what you took. And that's only because mortgage rates now are low. They're 4% is considered a low, relatively low mortgage rate. Some people are able to get 3%. But years ago it was much higher than that, the interest rates. It's 4% a year. 30 years, it's 4% a year. It's amortization. They're not allowed to take the first year. You're paying much more interest, and then less and less and less and less. It looks like 2 arrows going like this. Search online amortization schedule for a mortgage. You'll see it. Amortization. AMORTIZATION. They structure it in such a way. It's officially at 4%, and the first year, as you pay every month, when you pay, you're paying some interest and some principal. You start off almost entirely interest because you owe $800,000. They make it in such a way they could keep charging you every year. So at the end of the Same amount. Same amount every month ad asif. That's a standard, simple mortgage. Now, this buyer doesn't have good credit. The bank doesn't want to give him $800,000. So he has a friend who does loans. And the friend tells him, usually I do hard money. So hard money lending is not bank lending. So that's usually shorter term, much higher percentage. It could be 12, it could be 15, it could be 18. Up to $24.99. Afterwards, you get arrested. That's the thing. 25% is criminal usury. So they could be in trouble. So you do $24.99, you'll see that's the number on credit cards. The highest APR is $24.99 because that's right below 25. But he says, you know what, you're a friend, I'm going to do it like a bank. Same as a bank, 4%. Yeah, 4%, and then he comes and he wants to do such a thing. You have a problem. You can't give him interest. And you'll become a chacham and say you want to do a heter iske, on the mortgage. It's a big shayla if a heter iske works for such a thing. Why is it a shayla if a heter iske works for such a thing? For a few reasons. First of all, you have to see if the profits make sense. So you're going to say 574, 956 over 10 years, over 30 years. Yeah, it's not, what is it? 38, yeah, $38,000 a year. No, 574, it's like $15,000 a year. $16,000 a year, it's not so bad. But a heter iske is two people. And you're giving half of the profit to the guy who is investing with you. So it has to be double the amount of profits. Double. So you have to be making on this house in 30 years $1.149 thousand because that's 2 times the rebis that you're paying. The extra that you're paying is 574 over 30 years. But that's only the half for the guy who gave you the money for heter iske. You have to make 1.14. It's not mufrich. It's not mufrich to make that amount, to make $38,000 a year in a house. Depending on the house that you paid $800,000, $1 million, if you deduct expenses, net profit, you're not making $38,000. You can make $38,000 a year profit that you could split half with your shutuf.
How many kitchens do you have?
You could. It's shayach, but it's not going to be so easy. And, but you have a different problem. The problem is using it for yourself. And that's what I want to say now. There's a sifman beis in Alter Rebbe. They have a sifman beis in Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says about the iske, kol zek shoyis na moed shemekabel hin atzmon iska shemisasik bein l'reviach ve'einoi moitzi oiso and bitzi oiso. Doesn't spend it for his own personal needs. אבל אם הויצי יסר מחצי המויז של הלווה ביציע שאין בהן רווח, if he spent half of the money, more than half, on payments for his own use, something which does not generate income, כגון צריך פרנסוסוי, your expenses, or דירוסוי, or your residence, or פירעון חויב, you're paying old loans, it's a big problem. Even if you right away put back new money into that for the business deal, it says the person who took the money, it's his revach. It's complete ribis if you take that profit and give it to the person. It's not profit, it's not iske, it's ribis. The moment you spent that money that was given to you as an investment, the majority of the money was spent on something which does not generate income, rather for your own personal use. Now, became a halva. And now you don't have, because you spent half the money. That half that you spent as a loan Now you don't have the half of the money to be able to generate half of the profit for the guy who gave you the money. So if you're going to give him bein rav, bein me'at, whether a little or a lot, you're actually giving him ribis. So that's why it's usher. So now you have a simple solution. You live in New York, you buy a house this year, and next year it's going to go up in price. I bought a house last year for $810, and now on the same house in the neighborhood it's going for $950, same size. So you could say that's not really Yitziyaisa. It's not for my personal use. I just put into a house. The house went up 10 and more, 15% and 12% in 1 year. The house appreciated in value. It is, but it's not something which is Yitzia Shein Barevach. He says you're using it for yourself for Yitzia Shein Barevach, for something which does not generate income.
You can take a loan out against the numerous of the house.
Right. So I'm saying is Yitzia Shein Barevach. What can't I use? I can't take half the money for Yitzia Shein Barevach. For personal expense, it does not generate profits.
Why does it not generate?
When? That's what I just said. It does. I'm telling you, that's what it does. It does generate it. I'm saying is when you use it to buy a house, you have an element that it does generate the profit. So there is a svara to say that it is mutter, even though it's personal yitziyah. So in a place where the price goes up, there is revach. However, but ultimately it's a heteriska. And the heteriska is not, you have to know what you're doing. So what does he want to do? So you want to do this solution of the Alter Rebbe that we mentioned in Sif Nun and On, which was about the using a third party as a middle person. So how do you do a third party when you own a house, when you buy a house? So now just want to point out something very interesting because we mentioned Heter Iska now. Yeah. There is from the Rebbe, interestingly, about Heter Iska. Yeah, you have in our book, it's on page 236. It's a letter from the Rebbe. Yeah, where the Rebbe says, "Betach yasu a mortgage on moicher Yehudi beheter iska." The letter from the Rebbe, page 236. Betach yasu a mortgage on moicher Yehudi beheter iska. So the Rebbe says heter iska, doesn't tell you to do the other option. Personal mortgage, yeah, heter iska. So to try to explain, it's very simple because the house does appreciate in value. So there's a way the heter iska is kosher. However, you look, and very interestingly, on the same page, on the next paragraph on page 236.
You can't use the word heter for every type of solution.
And that's what the Rebbe mentioned in that Rashimon, that the Rebbe Rashab's, the Rebbe Marash's son-in-law would write al pi heter iska and everything. And the Rebbe writes over here in this page 237, in the same one, where the Rebbe said if you can't find the heter, if you don't have a heter iska ready, temporarily you could just add the words al pi heter iska into your agreement. But afterwards, go find the heter iska and use it.
Maybe heter iska means to rent it back and forth and whatever.
No, it's not heter iska. It's not heter iska. Renting it back and forth is a full schirus. Through a third party. I just want to point out something interesting because you're mentioning heter iska. The same letter, the next letter of the Rebbe, which is on page 236 in the bottom, the Rebbe writes the Gemach, which was, I think, in Eretz Yisrael, and was under one of the Moses of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, somebody came to me and told me that he wanted that. I sent him to get a Gemach from you. And he didn't want to do it. He didn't do it. Why? Because you guys do through heter iska. And he does not want to even have a shayla of ribis, even through heter iska. And the Rebbe says, Kevon shegam ani mishtamet minyonim koilu. I myself avoid it. We're talking about heter iska, not ribis. Heter iska. Tmi hogdoilo. Shalei yodua shebinyoni ribis einu yigeh rak lamav ve'laloive elagam la'oedim v'chol mi sheyesh l'shaychas v'chulu v'chulu. Being that the Rebbe has a shaychas to the Moisid. V'terem lasis b'efen anal gmach beheter iska tzorech l'kabel sas kamosi. Yeah, that's a straw. I mean, all the Moises denos. Tzach was under the Siyas, the Chetmim Lud was under the Siyas, and Terasem was under the Siyas. So You don't, Beisifka is on the Nesias. Whichever Moisa there was on the Nesias. I don't think there was Lubavitch and Moisa in Eretz Yisrael at that time, and this letter was written, Chelik Yud, is like probably the mid-Yuds, Tafshin Yud Zayin, Tafshin Yud Be, Tafshin Yud Ches, whatever it is, that, or maybe even earlier, that was,
Unless it was a private gemach and it's
No, it's a Gemach, Api Hoyra, see the Kabbal, he says, the Rebbe says it's in the Gea, it's Lishai, Kol Sheyesh Lishaychus. The Rebbe is talking about his Shaychus to it. Yeah, so now you could say very simple, the Rebbe was not happy with a Gemach that gives Heteriskis because a Gemach usually gives money for personal loans. So Heteriskis is a joke, it's a personal loan, like I just read to you from the Alter Rebbe. However, when you have when the mortgage, you could say you could do a heterisk. What if you don't want to do a heterisk? You want to do a derech hayosher v'atayv. So you have to find a third party because you want to live in the house. All right. So you have the lender, the one who lent the money. The lender is Levi, the one who gave it. Reuven sold the house; he's out of the picture. Shimon bought the house. Levi is the one that's giving the $800,000. And now over here, a mortgage by definition is a mashkanta, is a mashkaina, because the house becomes a guarantee for the loan. The mortgage is the house becomes a guarantee for the loan. So it becomes a mashkan. You can't do a direct one to another. We learned it in Siman Kuf Samach Daled. It's a mashkan. The house becomes a mashkan for the loan. It's a mashkin that doesn't become yours. It's not a mashkin nechiyasa, it's not a mashkan to the surah. It's a regular mashkin. You don't acquire it until the guy stops paying and then you can collect from it. But it's a mashkin. It's a guaranteed, secured loan. So comes Levi, who gave the $800,000.
How does this work? Why is Levi paying Shimon want to buy it?
She wants to buy the house. Levi is the one who's giving the money instead of the bank.
Oh,
Levi is the bank.
Levi's the bank.
Yeah.
Now means that Shimon needs to pay back Levi.
Shimon has to pay back Levi.
So how does that work?
So Levi goes to Shimon.
Yeah.
Yeah. He gave him $800,000, right?
Yeah.
Well, he wants to give him $800,000.
Right.
Tells him, I'm renting from you this house that you bought. Renting it for you for 30 years. I'm paying you now as a prepayment $800,000 for rental for 30 years. That comes out to $2,222 a month.
He's taking that money and he's paying the seller.
He's doing whatever he wants. Shimon can do whatever he wants. Takes the money, pays the seller. Now Levi,
How did she rent it to Levi before she knows?
he has a contract. He signed it.
He just only had read it.
So maybe he took money from somebody for one day and then he has to pay back the money. Saying whatever. He has the house. Let's say he took a loan for a day from somebody else, no interest, paid it back. Now comes the bank loan. The bank loan is Levi. And Levi says, okay, now I want to give you $800,000. So he's giving him, now Shimon owns the house completely because he got a one-day loan, a bridge loan, without interest. It's called a bridge loan. It means bridge loan mitzad miloshim, that bridges between when you get your full loan and when you need the money. And usually bridge loans are very high interest because they're only for a few days. You're going to tell a guy a bridge loan, 12% is 1% a year, and 1% a month, and it's you only taking a bridge loan for 2-3 weeks, the guy's not going to make anything. So bridge loans are much more expensive. So this guy gave a bridge loan for nothing, somebody else unrelated, and he bought the house. Shimon buys the house. Now he's going to the guy who's going to give him a permanent mortgage. So instead of getting a permanent mortgage, he comes and says, I'm renting the house from you for $800,000.
Now, why does Shimon pay him back after 30 years?
Shimon's not paying him anything.
Nothing.
Nope. Now,
The original lender, the lender of the
no, the bridge lender is out of the picture already. Shimon and Levi now is giving the mortgage, and he's giving the mortgage. Instead of doing the mortgage, he's coming to Shimon and telling Shimon, you own the house. I'm renting from you the house for 30 years for $800,000, even though such a house really costs $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 a month to rent, or maybe only costs $3,500 a month to rent, but definitely not $2,200 a month to rent. I'm renting it because I want to rent it from you And for 800,000 for 30 years, you're getting the whole money up front because you're giving me. I'm taking a discount because I'm renting it up front, like the Alter Rebbe says. Then Levi goes, makes a kinyan, changes the lock on the door, and now Levi is the renter of this house. Levi is the renter, and in his rental, he has a provision that allows him to sublet it, to give it weiter to the next person. He goes now, finds somebody else. Goes now to Yehuda, fifth person in the story. Because we have the seller, we have the bridge loan, we have the buyer, we have the one who's providing the money, who rented the house for 30 years. Shimon has a problem because Shimon wants to live in the house. Shimon's a buyer, he wants to live in the house.
He never yet lived there.
He didn't yet live there. And Levi, who gave 800,000, made a form of kinyan over there. And now Levi goes to Yehuda, tells Yehuda, I'm renting you this. I have this lease for 30 years. And I have nothing to do with it. I want to rent it out to you. How much am I renting it out to you? For $3,819 a month. That's how much I'm renting it to you for. Yehuda happens to be Shimon's friend. Shimon set him up for it. Like the Alter Rebbe says, you find the friend to do it for you. Yeah? It's the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe. One of the only places where it says you have to go find a friend. Where is it? The Lashon. In Balabai Sirot Zelias Lisha Vevese Fresh Chris Beatzmi Yevakish Echad Me'oyhavov Shizker Natsu Maseichel. Seif Nun. Echad Me'oyhavov. Find a good friend who you know is not going to mess you over. That's the point of it. Because otherwise you end up without a house and owing money.
Maybe you should stay away from your friend.
No. So maybe he's not. You have to find somebody you can trust. So he takes. Nobody's losing anything. Look at the house. So now what happens is that Levi, that Yehuda, the fourth person, who rented it from the one who gave the $800,000, he's renting it for $3,819 a month. And he goes to Shimon, the buyer, and tells the buyer, here, I'm renting it to you for $3,819 a month. So Shimon, the buyer, gives Yehuda $3,819 because he's his new subletter. Yehuda goes to Levi, who was originally paid $800,000, and gives him $3,819 a month. Multiply that times 12 times 30, 360 months, and you end up with the total same amount as the mortgage.
The Alter Rebbe says that you need a third person, you need that's when it wasn't for the purchase of the house, and you didn't want to look like a Ram. Over here, you never lived in it, so you don't need a third person in it.
You still need a third person. You can't go straight to the
You
person.
didn't live there before.
Huh?
You didn't actually live there before.
Api Teure, Api Dina de Machusa, and in Teure we will rely on it in such a scenario. The moment I signed the contract and I made the closing, it became mine. So Shimon, even though I didn't really make a kinyan, no, I made a kinyan, it's mine. Let's put it this way: if somebody would fall in front of that sidewalk during those, it would be my responsibility. Yeah.
The problem isn't the Matthias, the problem is whether it looks like Haram or not.
It looks like in such a scenario, Alter Rebbe says it doesn't look like Haram.
Over here, so that when Alter Rebbe's talking about when he lived there, but
He wants to live there.
no, Alter Rebbe's talking about he lived there, but
He wants to live, so you have to make a third
he
person.
lived there before, now he wants to continue.
But over here, you have a problem because you have the mashkina. You have a mashkin. Anyways, you need a third person.
You need someone to give you the loan. You're talking about a third person to rent it from him to rent it back to you.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's definitely Aroma. I give you 800,000. I'm paying you now. I rent it to you for 2,222, and I say, and I rent the next day. I'm without doing anything. I'm renting. I give it to you for $2,000 a month, and you give it back to me for $3,800 a month without anybody in between. It's clearly Aroma. It's I'm lending you every month. I'm lending you every month $2,200, and you pay me back $3,819. It's clearly Aroma. Looks like Rebbe's, no question about it. Huh?
Shimon, Yehuda, Levi, can Shimon just pay straight to Levi, or he has to go through?
No, it has to go through Yehuda. That's the Lashon Alter Rebbe, yeah?
What's Shuchat going through Yehuda? His bank account, and
Kolel in his hand or through his bank account.
what if the IRS is suspicious?
Huh? And you do it in cash. It's on video. You can answer questions.
No, I think every time there's no change, you'll have to pay taxes for it.
No, definitely.
The Alter says clear, the business near Karam. It's no less near when he didn't live there before than when he did live there before.
If it's on my name, it's Nila Karama clearly. That I get from you.
Your name from before. The question is if someone came in between. But we're not going to.
But no, what I'm saying is that if I tell you that I'm giving you now, I'm renting from you your house for $800,000 for 30 years, that's $2,222. Yeah, I'm renting you the house, and you come back to me, and the same day you sign a contract that you're renting it back to me for $3,800 a month. It doesn't have to look like Adam. It's clearly Adam.
The Alter says near Karam instead of problem instead of Karam.
I'm saying it's Nira Karam. Over here, it's more than that. It's for sure Nira Karam. Because really, we look at it, we say document is a document. There's a loan, there's a rental agreement. There's another rental agreement. This person needs a lot of money now, so he's renting out his house for long term, but he wants to live there, so he's renting it back for 38. So it's not dry halacha. You would think that's not a problem. It's Nira Karam. Yeah, so that's the one way of doing it according to that. Right now, when we spoke about it over there, that you have to, we mentioned out there, that's pretty much the solution for this thing. So that is when there's a mashkin or when it goes back from the same people. That's going to go back to Shulchan Aruch. I want to discuss another interesting topic, which is mentioned in Seif Gimel in Shulchan Aruch and Kuf Samach Dalet. In Kuf Samach Dalet and Seif Gimel, the Mechaber writes, Mutor limker sadeu la'acher, ulehasnois imoi sheyachkirenu loy achar kach. I'm allowed to go and sell a field, and obviously a house also, to somebody else as a permanent sale, because it's not a mashkin anymore, and make a condition with you at the time of sale that I'm going to rent it back from you. That means I need money. Nothing I can do about it. But I still want to use my field. I still want to live in my field. I still want to live in the house. So I sell you the house as a full, complete sale. It's not a rental. It's not a mashkin. I sell you the house, complete, full sale. Irrevocable sale. Irrevocable sale. And I tell you that I want you to rent it to me afterwards. What can I do? I need money. I have debts. I need money. I'm borrowing. I'm selling my house to you, and I'm going to rent for you. No, and whatever it is, when I go to El Mamis, I'll be out. You'll get a different tenant. But I want to rent it for you. That's not a problem. It's not a problem. And the Taz right away comes and brings two important points. Number one, first question is, why is it different than a mashkin? A mashkin, we say you need a third party. Over here, it doesn't say you need a third party. Why by a mashkin the mechaber says it's aser? Over here, it was straight up the mechaber says it's mutter without a third party, without anything. The Taz is a very simple logic. It says, being that the house is completely sold to him, legamre, and he has a bailus forever more than the soicher. So therefore, he's allowed to then go and rent it directly back from the person he sold it to, because it was a full sale, not revocable sale, never going to go back, and therefore it is fine. Yeah, and interestingly, when the Levush discusses this halacha, Levush takes the same sif as a Shulchan Aruch and expands a few words and adds 3 times from mechiras chaluta, mecher gamur lechalutin leolam, betelas mecher gamur. Make sure to emphasize it 3 times. It's a complete, absolute, forever sale. Because if there's any element that this sale is retractable, that this sale is going to change and in 20 years from now, and the whole thing is a fraud in its not a halachic fraud.
So you can't put an option like a buyback option.
No, and if you're going to look in the Alter Rebbe, now interestingly, the Alter Rebbe doesn't mention this halacha bichlal in Shulchan Aruch. doesn't mention this option in Rebbe. Surprisingly, I didn't see it anywhere in Alter Rebbe. Every other sefer mentions it. Alter Rebbe completely as if the sif doesn't exist. In the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe does not mention it. The Alter Rebbe does go after he discusses from Sif Nun Daled and on. The Alter Rebbe discusses the whole option of sale that goes back. And the Alter Rebbe is more machmir that even if you don't make such a condition in the beginning, in writing, means you only had nikor midas moicher that he wants to change his mind, and even if the seller even if the buyer did not make even a commitment that he's going to give it back to him, but it's clear from the onset that this whole thing was done with the idea that down the line, one day I'm going to get this house back from him, and it's not a full sale. Yesh bozeh mishum ribis gmura, according to one of the opinions. Now, to the paskins, yesh lahachmir ledivreim b'shel Torah. You have to be machmir. Can't get away from it. And so the Alter Rebbe does not mention the option of selling in such a scenario. I don't know why the Alter Rebbe does not mention it, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't mention it. Could be because either because Alter Rebbe thinks that something to do with sale belongs to Choshen Mishpat, or because such a sale could be that there is an element in the person. If the person is selling the house and he's renting it back right away, could be there's some element in his mind that he wants the house back. Could be, I don't know.
Did you just mention?
Nun Dalet. Anyway, so the Taz brings two things. That's the first thing I just mentioned. The second thing is he mentions Gam kan tzorich sheyikna lekech habayis tchila bekinyan gomur kedech shemechir niknes ba'alma. Over here also, just like in a mashken, you have to make a kinyan gomur that the mechaber writes in the beginning of that are more rights in Sif Aleph. Shekva hechzik amalve besoda that the malve has to have a chazaka. So to here, when it comes to selling a house, the person has to make a kinyan in between the buyer. If not, if there is no kinyan in between, it becomes like halvan, it's aser. Now back to the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, and if it didn't make any kinyan, it looks like halvan, it's aser. There's a nekudas hakesef on the side, which is not clear which taz it belongs to. Some people will patch it to one taz, some people will put it on this taz. The Bar Heitev takes that nekudas hakesef and puts it on this taz. What is it that the Shach said nekudas hakesef? He just mentions that he references what the Shach himself wrote in Sifkat and Daled on Sif Beis and Shulchan Aruch regarding a mashkin. The feel enachas amalva tach mashkin the cloud still mutter. Even if the malva did not go b'chlan to the mashkin, still mutter. He's chaylik on the, and he brings the raya from the Ritva, which the Beis Yosef brings. That's nekudas hakesef. The Bar Heitev connects that nekudas hakesef to our Seif, and he says pretty much that there's a machlokes shach and taz in our Seif of a mechire whether you need to have a kinyan between the renting it back or not. The Chavaz Das brings the Chavaz Das actually seems like he puts the nekudas hakesef in the other in previous Seif, because he brings the nekudas hakesef on Sif Beis. Over there, he puts the machlokes of Shach and Taz. Yeah, that's and it seems like the Chavaz Das paskins like the Shach when it comes to Mashkin, because he mentions the Shach first when it comes to Mashkin and Biurim, and when it comes to a house, he paskins like the Taz. Yeah, because on Sif Gimel he only brings the Taz. He does not mention Bichlal the Shach. He doesn't connect the Shach to here. From the Chavaz Das, it's mashma that the Shach would also require, in this case of a rental after a sale, that you have to go into the person who purchased it has to go into the house to be able to make a kinyan before renting it back to the seller. And that's the mashmos of the Chavaz Das from the way the Chavaz Das set up his pirush. That's, I'll exactly tell you the Marakayas of Chavaz Das. So you look at it and you'll see it's one of the important things when you look at the Chavaz Das is to see where he places and who he quotes. Chavaz Das. second. Sorry, not Sif Beis. I was mentioning Sif Gimel, Sif Beis. It's really Sif Beis, Sif Aleph. Sorry. Every time I said Sif Gimel until now, it's really Sif Beis. Once it's Sif Beis, Sif Aleph. Mixed up. I wasn't looking inside. Yeah. No, Sif Beis, Sif Gimel. You're right. Sif Beis, Sif Gimel. Sif Beis, Sif Gimel, like I said. So now on Seif Beis, you have in Chidushim of the Chavas Das, he brings the Kudas Hakes, the Shach and the Kudas Hakes first, and then he brings the Taz on Seif Beis when it comes to Mashkanta the Surah. On Seif Gimel, which is about selling a house and taking it back, he only mentions the Taz. And just by the way, it's supposed to be marked in your Chavas Das. It's supposed to be marked that the word of Lahasnois belongs on Sif Gimel, and they just wrote it to Sif Beis, but really belongs to Sif Gimel. So on Sif Gimel, he only mentions the Taz, which means he holds it by a house. You have to make a full kinyan in between, and in the first one, he holds like a shach. You don't have to. He passes like a shach. You don't have to. That's what it looks like from the Chavas Das. The question is, what's the difference between these two? So if you want to take the position of the bar hativ, that it's across the board. Yeah, it's across the board. The shach holds that you have to make that you don't have to show ownership in the house. It's enough that you whatever kinyan you made, whether it's in the mashkanta or it's buying and then renting out. And the Taz holds in both that you have to. The Taz does hold in both that you have to go down. The question is only what's the shach shit over here. But if I go according to Chavas Das and the people like that the shach is machmir. In our case, in the Sif Gimel, so when it goes to the house, you have to. When it goes to the buying, complete sale, and then renting it out, you have to own it in between. But in the previous in the mashkin, you don't have to own it in between. The question is why? Why is it? And in one place he does require it, one place he doesn't require it. So you could, so they have you have a Shardeya, not about Sif Gimel, but about the previous Sif, where he's discussing the whole thing, whether in the scenario of a mashkin, if that you borrow in the mashkin and you rent it back, if it's considered a Deiraisa or Derabanan, we saw it in the. It's mentioned the Beis Yosef. The majority of the Rishonim hold the Rabbanan, the Mashma from Rashi, the Zeraisa. The Shardeya, B'derech Hagav, he mentioned something interesting. Just, you have to realize, but when you buy a house, you have to make a kinyan. When you buy a mashkin, you don't have to make a kinyan.
You already made it.
You know what I mean? Before, what I'm saying, with a mashkin, all you have to be able to transfer a mashkin from one to another is only kesef and shtar. So when you're doing a different transaction, so it makes sense why the shach in the mashkin. He doesn't say it's connected to the shach. I'm telling you, it will make sense by a mashkin, the shach by a mashkin. You don't need to go into the field and to do something and to show that you're an owner, because the transaction already happened. And when you buy it and you want to rent it out to somebody else, it's not enough. You have to do something more serious. That's one of the ways of explaining it. That the mashkanta is different. And I actually saw in the book the Shiur Cheker Halacha, he brings a question like that and he explains differently. He says even the shach, even the taz, who says that you have to make that you have to go into the field, it's only if you didn't do any other action to show that the field is yours. It's a mashkin. But if it's a mashkin echiyasa, that every month I deduct money from the original loan, so then the first month that I deducted money, I showed my bailus. I don't have to do anything. So if a month passed, it's as if hechzik b'sodik. That's what it seems like. If a month passed and I deducted money based on using the fruits of your field, because nechios, I deducted money. That's my bilos. Then you don't have to worry about it. But really, if it would be even according to the Taz, it's only in the beginning. Only if it's a mashkin where you don't show any other kind of bilos, so you have to show bilos. Otherwise, you don't have to show. Otherwise, you don't have to show bilos. Yeah, so we have that's the ways of understanding the sif. I could go into it more in deep, but I'm not going to have enough time for it. So just that you have, there's two ways of looking what does the shach hold. According to the way the Darkei Tshuva understands the shach, the way it's mashma from the Chavas Das, there's a Be'er Heitev under the Chavas Das, from Mari Tikton, a different Be'er Heitev, which also understands that the shach also only mentions the Taz in Sif Gimel, and mentions the Shach and Sif Beis, which seems to imply also that all these people that only mention the Taz and don't bring the Shach Bechlal, the Shach would also agree with it. Otherwise, they would mention the Shach, that the Shach disagrees. They don't. They don't mention the Shach disagrees. They don't mention the Shach because it's a case of connecting it like the regular Ber Hated. Obviously, that they hold that even the Shach would agree that in the case of buying a house and buying a property and renting it out, you do have to make some kind of kinyan. The only way to say that you don't, the only one that would say that you don't have to is the Bar Hativ, and it's Takei Shaila, because he connects the Kolas HaKesef on the next Sif, he puts it on Sif Gimel rather than Sif Beis. Okay, we're going to stop here because Mincha is happening, and Mr. Shem will have another share one of these days.